So let's get started. So Susie, you are an award-winning journalist, and you got your start at ABC, correct? Yeah. So tell me about your journey and how you evolved as a journalist from your first job out of college.
Actually, I got interested in journalism when I was the editor of my junior high school, ninth grade newspaper. And so I was very interested in print. And then I went on to work, I grew up in Ohio, and I went on to be a writer for a reporter for the Cleveland Plain Dealer, and I thought I had made it. But then as time went on, television became much more of a driving force in covering the news, and so I got into financial journalism and with local television, WABC TV, covering more consumer news. I loved it, I had the bug, and then I just stayed with it.
Yeah. So what made you interested in financial journalism from the start?
Well, it was very backwater when I started, and I'm not going to tell you when that was.
Okay.
But all of a sudden, the financial news was the front page story. It was about the economy, about people not having jobs, about a lot of people having to, work more as a freelancer, independent contractor. There were a lot of changing trends. Two-family jobs. All of these trends that are now so common were brand new back then. And a lot of journalists did not like covering business news. They thought it was boring.
Yeah.
I thought it was fascinating. And now it's become kind of a hot area to be in. But it wasn't like that when I first started out.
Yeah. All right. So can you tell me what your favorite story that you've ever covered is?
That's a hard one.
Yeah.
I've been very fortunate to cover a lot of different stories. And I feel like this whole field of journalism, I have the best job on the planet. I meet the most fascinating people. I'm learning something new every day. I have been to the White House many times. I interviewed President Clinton in his last term of office. I interviewed George W. Bush many times. I've interviewed Warren Buffett. I've interviewed a lot of the icons of our time, like Bill Gates of Microsoft, a lot of the titans of our industry. So it's just been, I can't choose one.
Yeah, that's incredible. Nice. So how have you adapted to the change in the industry since when you first started?
It's very different today than it was. First of all, for women, it's just opened up tremendously. Because when I started out in financial journalism, actually at Fortune magazine, it was more of a all men, all boys kind of club. Most of the boardrooms and the CEOs on the Fortune 500 were men, and so it just made a lot more sense to have men covering it. Now you see women everywhere, whether it's in television or in print. That's one big change. The other thing is that cable television came along. Now it's digital, that you can get the news on your cell phone or everywhere else. Before when I first started, there were three networks, ABC, NBC, and CBS. And so look how much all of that has changed. There are so many outlets. There are so many blogs and newsletters, and just been a proliferation of venues to cover news and analysis, of course.
So you talked about how it was difficult being a woman when you first started. So was there any criticism that you first faced?
Any criticism?
Yeah, from being maybe like one of the only women.
No, I wouldn't say there was any criticism. And in some ways, while it was while it was a challenge to be made a writer or a reporter who could cover important stories, once you did get this interview or did get the story, it was often an advantage. Because one thing I find that, at least for me and for many women, we're good listeners. And we're also maybe less threatening. And so you get really good stuff and then fly with it, and it sort of took some people by surprise. So I think it was an advantage and still is.
Yeah, so do you have any advice for anyone that's wanting to go into financial journalism, and especially broadcast in general?
Know why you're going into it. It's not for all of the perks, although there are plenty of them. It's not to be in a studio like this and to be on camera, but it's to share, to communicate with your viewers or your readers. It's to have a story to tell and to tell it well, and to always be looking for more than whatever the headline is and really digging and getting behind it. So my advice is follow your heart, work very hard, be very persistent, and then you'll get all the successes that go with it.
Great. Well, that's all
That's
I
it?
have. Yeah, that's it.
Well, that was easy.
Yeah, well, thank
that
you.
Was fun.